The sun hung low over the horizon, casting long shadows across the sprawling desert. The air was thick with anticipation, a mix of excitement and quiet unease rippling through the crowd gathered at the launch site. This wasn't just another rocket heading into orbit. It was humanity's first step toward the stars. The spaceship Eos, sleek and gleaming like a silver needle against the orange sky, stood ready on its platform, towering above everything around it. Jae-min adjusted, his helmet as he climbed the steps to the boarding ramp. His movements were deliberate, each step measured, but his sharp eyes betrayed his nerves. He had spent years preparing for this moment, poring over equations and simulations, yet nothing could fully prepare him for what lay ahead. Beside him walked Yuna, her presence calming despite the weight of their mission. She carried herself with grace, though her hands fidgeted slightly with the edge of her uniform sleeve, a small sign of the anxiety she rarely let others see. Behind them, cheers erupted from the crowd below. Families waved banners bearing messages of hope and pride, while reporters shouted questions that went unanswered. Among the spectators stood Soo-jin, Jae-min's younger sister, clutching a faded photograph tightly in her hands. Her lips pressed into a thin line as she watched her brother ascend the ramp. Next to her, Hyo-seok, Yuna's husband, held his daughter close, whispering reassurances to the wide-eyed child who didn't fully understand why her mother was leaving. This mission was more than science. It was survival. Earth had grown crowded, resources dwindling faster than anyone wanted to admit. Governments argued endlessly about solutions, but none could agree on how to fix the planet's problems. And so, humanity turned outward, not out of curiosity alone, but out of necessity. The plan was simple. Send a team of explorers to find new worlds, establish contact with advanced civilizations if possible, and secure humanity's future among the stars. But there was no guarantee they'd succeed. As Jae-min and Yuna reached the top of the ramp, they paused to take one last look at Earth. The sight was breathtaking. The curve of the blue-green planet stretched endlessly beneath them, dotted with clouds and shimmering oceans. It was beautiful, fragile even, and it struck both of them how small it seemed compared to the vast emptiness beyond. For a brief moment, they shared a glance, their expressions mirroring the same thought. Would they ever see this place again? Inside the ship, the atmosphere shifted. Gone were the cheers and applause, replaced by the hum of machinery and the sterile scent of polished metal. The crew moved efficiently, double-checking systems and securing equipment. There were 6 of them in total, each chosen for their expertise. Besides Jae-min and Yuna, there was Min-soo, the pilot whose steady hands had guided countless shuttles through Earth's atmosphere. Ji-eun, the engineer who could fix anything with enough duct tape and determination. Tae-hyun, the medic whose calm demeanor masked a fierce dedication to keeping everyone alive. And finally, Seung-woo, the communications specialist tasked with deciphering alien languages should they encounter any. "Ready?" Min-soo asked, settling into the pilot's seat. His voice broke the silence, pulling everyone back to the task at hand. "As ready as we'll ever be," Jae-min replied, strapping himself into his chair. His tone was firm, but there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. He glanced at Yuna, who gave him a reassuring nod before focusing on her console. The countdown began, echoing through the cabin. 10, 9, 8. Each number felt heavier than the last, pressing down on their chests until the final beep signaled liftoff. With a deafening roar, Eos surged upward, shaking violently as it fought against gravity's pull. Outside, flames licked the edges of the launch pad, and smoke billowed into the sky. Inside, the crew gripped their seats, feeling the immense force press them deeper into their cushions. For several minutes, all anyone could do was hold on. The G-forces made conversation impossible, and the view outside was obscured by fire and haze. Then, suddenly, the shaking subsided. The roar faded into a gentle hum, and the cabin grew eerily quiet. They had broken free of Earth's atmosphere. Yuna unbuckled her harness first, floating slightly in the zero-gravity environment. She drifted toward a window, peering out at the endless expanse of space. Stars glittered like diamonds, scattered. Across black velvet and far below, Earth glowed softly, a reminder of where they came from. "It's incredible," she murmured, half to herself. Jae-min joined her, his expression unreadable. "Yes," he said after a moment, "but we're not here to admire the view." His words cut through the awe, grounding them back in reality. This wasn't a joyride, it was a mission, a dangerous one. Ahead of them lay uncharted territory, unknown dangers, and perhaps opportunities that could change the course of human history. But it would require sacrifice. Time away from loved ones, years spent in isolation, and the constant threat of failure looming over every decision. Over the next few days, the crew settled into a routine. Minsu plotted their course, guiding Eos along a trajectory designed to minimize fuel consumption while maximizing speed. Ji-eun tinkered with the ship's systems, making sure everything ran smoothly. Tae-hyun monitored everyone's health, ensuring the stresses of space travel didn't take too great a toll. Meanwhile, Seong-woo tested the communication array, running simulations to prepare for potential encounters with extraterrestrial life. Jae-min and Yuna spent most of their time in the lab, analyzing data collected during their ascent and planning experiments for when they reached their destination. Their dynamic was unique. They balanced each other perfectly. Where Jae-min was analytical and methodical, Yuna brought creativity and intuition. Together they formed a partnership that drove much of the mission's scientific progress. Still, tensions occasionally flared, space was cramped, and privacy was non-existent. Days blurred together, marked only by shifts in activity and meals eaten in silence. The isolation weighed heavily on everyone, especially Soo-jin and Hyo-seok, whose faces appeared occasionally on video calls. These brief moments of connection were bittersweet, offering comfort, but also reminding the crew of what they'd left behind. One evening, as the ship sailed silently through the void, Jae-min found himself staring at a photo taped to the wall of his quarters. It showed him, Soo-jin, and their parents standing in front of their childhood home. Smiling faces frozen in time, oblivious to the journey he was now undertaking. He wondered what his parents would think if they were still alive. Would they be proud? Or would they worry about the risks he'd taken? A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Yuna floated into the room, her expression hesitant. "Mind if I join you?" He gestured for her to come in. "Not at all." They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the stars drift past the tiny porthole. Finally, Yuna spoke. "Do you ever wonder if we're doing the right thing? Leaving everything behind, chasing something that might not even exist?" Jae-min hesitated. "Every day," he admitted, "but we don't have a choice. If we stay on Earth, we risk losing everything. Out here?" He trailed off, gesturing vaguely at the infinite darkness outside. "Out here, there's hope." Yuna nodded slowly, her gaze distant. "Hope," she repeated softly. "Let's just hope it's enough." And with that, they returned to their duties, carrying the weight of humanity's future on their shoulders. Behind them, Earth grew smaller and smaller, eventually becoming just another speck of light among millions. Ahead, the galaxy awaited, vast and mysterious, holding secrets that could either save or doom them all. The ship Eos drifted silently through the endless void of space. Days turned into weeks, and weeks stretched into months. For the crew, time seemed to blur together, marked only by the steady hum of the engines and the faint glow of distant stars outside their windows. The initial excitement of leaving Earth had faded, replaced by a quiet rhythm of routine and responsibility. Yet beneath the surface, something was changing, something profound. Jae-min spent most of his days in the lab, surrounded by screens filled with data and equations. His sharp eyes rarely left the monitors as he worked tirelessly to understand the strange signals they had begun detecting shortly after leaving Earth's solar system. At first, the signals were faint, almost imperceptible, like whispers carried across unimaginable distances. But over time, they grew stronger, clearer, until they could no longer be ignored. Yuna joined him one evening, floating gracefully into the lab with a clipboard in hand. She had been analyzing samples from nearby asteroids, searching for signs of life or useful resources. Her face lit up when she saw the intensity in Jae-min's expression. "You found something," she said, her voice tinged with curiosity. He nodded, gesturing for her to come closer. "These signals, they're not random. They're structured, deliberate. Someone, or something, is sending them." Yuna studied the patterns on the screen, her brow furrowing as she processed the implications. "Do you think it's alien communication?" "It has to be," Jamin replied. "But it's unlike anything we've ever encountered before. Look at this." He pointed to a series of repeating sequences interspersed with bursts of static. "It's almost like a language, but far more complex than anything humans have created." For hours they pored over the data, debating theories and possibilities. Could it be a distress call, a warning, or perhaps an invitation? Whatever the case, one thing was clear. They weren't alone in the universe. As the days passed, the signals grew even stronger, guiding Eos toward their source. The crew worked together to adjust their course, their earlier fatigue replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. Ji-Eun fine-tuned the ship's systems to ensure they wouldn't miss any crucial details, while Seung-woo monitored the communication array, hoping to decipher more of the mysterious language. Min-soo kept a steady hand on the controls, steering them carefully through uncharted territory. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached their destination, a massive structure floating in the darkness of space. It was ancient, its metallic surface scarred by countless impacts and covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light. The crew stared in awe as Eos approached, their hearts pounding with a mix of fear and wonder. "What is this place?" Tae-hyun whispered, breaking the silence. Jamin's voice was steady, though his hands trembled slightly. "I don't know, but I think we're about to find out." They decided to send a small team to investigate. Jamin and Yuna volunteered immediately, joined by Ji-Eun, whose technical skills would be invaluable if they needed to interact with the structure. As they suited up and prepared to leave the safety of Eos, the rest of the crew wished them luck, their faces etched with worry. Stepping onto the surface of the structure felt surreal. The ground beneath their boots was cold and uneven, littered with debris from eons past. The airlock they had identified as an entrance loomed ahead, its doors sealed shut but humming with energy. Ji-Eun worked quickly, connecting her tools to the mechanism and bypassing the ancient locks. With a low hiss, the doors slid open, revealing a dark corridor beyond. Inside, the walls were lined with more glowing symbols, pulsating gently as if alive. Jamin reached out to touch one, feeling a strange warmth radiate from the surface. "These must be part of their language," he murmured. "We need to document everything." Yuna nodded, already snapping photos and recording notes. "Whatever. Civilization built this place. They were far ahead of us. Look at how intricate these designs are." As they ventured deeper, the corridors opened into vast chambers filled with strange artifacts. Some resembled machines, their functions unknown, while others appeared to be sculptures or monuments. In the center of one chamber stood a pedestal, atop which rested a crystalline object that shimmered with an inner light. "That's it," Jamin breathed. "That's the source of the signals." Without hesitation, he approached the pedestal, his gloved hand hovering above the crystal. Before he could touch it, however, Yuna grabbed his arm. "Wait," she said firmly. "We don't know what will happen if you activate it." Her caution was warranted, but Jamin couldn't ignore the pull he felt toward the object. It was as if it called to him, urging him to uncover its secrets. "We didn't come all this way just to turn back now," he argued. "If we can understand this, we might learn who sent those signals, and why." Reluctantly, Yuna stepped aside, watching closely as Jamin placed his hand on the crystal. Instantly, the room erupted in light, blinding them momentarily. When their vision cleared, they found themselves surrounded by holographic projections, images of a civilization, long gone. Tall, slender beings with luminous skin moved gracefully through cities that floated among the stars. Their technology was breathtaking, far beyond anything humanity had achieved. "These are the Etherians," Jamin whispered, his voice filled with awe. "This is what they looked like, how they lived." The projections shifted, showing scenes of war and destruction. Ships clashed in fiery battles, planets crumbled under relentless attacks. Then came images of Earth, a primitive world teeming with life, untouched by the chaos ravaging the galaxy. The Etherians had visited Earth thousands of years ago, leaving behind traces of their presence in the form of myths and legends. They saw potential in humanity, believing it could rise to greatness given enough time. But then came the Vaylith Consortium, a ruthless empire that sought to dominate the galaxy. The Etherians resisted, fighting valiantly to protect weaker civilizations. In the end, they were defeated, their worlds destroyed, and their legacy erased. Only fragments remained, scattered across the stars like echoes of a forgotten age. Jamin clenched his fists, anger bubbling within him. They were trying to help us, he growled, and the consortium wiped them out. Yuna placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. We can't change the past, she said softly, but we can honor their memory. If we can use what they left behind, maybe we can protect Earth from the same fate. With newfound determination, the team gathered as much information as they could before returning to Eos. Back on the ship, they shared their findings with the rest of the crew, who listened in stunned silence. The weight of their discovery hung heavy in the air. We have proof now, Jamin declared. Earth isn't just some insignificant planet. We have a history, a connection to a civilization that once stood against tyranny. And if we want to survive, we'll need to do the same. The journey ahead suddenly felt less daunting and more urgent. They had uncovered a truth hidden for millennia, one that could either unite humanity or doom it. As Eos continued its voyage toward the heart of the galaxy, the crew resolved to carry the legacy of the Etherians with them, not as relics of the past, but as torchbearers for the future. Outside the ship, the stars twinkled indifferently, unaware of the lives touched by their light. Inside, 6 hearts beat as one, bound by a shared mission to protect the fragile blue world they had left behind. The path forward was uncertain, fraught with danger and sacrifice, but armed with knowledge and hope, they pressed on, ready to face whatever awaited them among the stars. The journey to the heart of the galaxy was long and uneventful, but the crew of Eos felt a growing tension as they approached their destination. The discovery of the Etherians had changed everything. No longer were they mere explorers venturing into the unknown. They carried with them a legacy, a responsibility to honor those who had once stood against oppression. And yet, that same legacy also brought fear. If the Vaylith Consortium truly ruled the galaxy, what would happen when humanity's presence became known? Finally, after months of travel, the ship entered a vast region of space filled with swirling nebulae and glowing stars. At its center lay the capital of the consortium, a sprawling network of orbiting stations and colossal ships, all surrounding a massive artificial sun that illuminated the area like daylight. It was breathtaking, a testament to the power and ingenuity of an empire that spanned countless worlds. But it was also intimidating, a stark reminder of how small and insignificant Earth seemed in comparison. As Eos neared the edge of the system, Min-Su slowed the ship to a crawl, his hands steady on the controls despite the weight of the moment. We're being scanned, he announced, glancing at the monitors. They know we're here. Good, Jamin said firmly. Let them see us. Let them know we've come in peace, but not weakness. The crew exchanged nervous glances. None of them had ever faced anything like this before. Back on Earth, they had been celebrated as pioneers, heroes embarking on humanity's greatest adventure. Here, they were nothing more than strangers arriving uninvited at the doorstep of a galactic superpower. Within moments, a message appeared on the communication screen. It wasn't in words or even symbols. It was a series of tones and vibrations, clearly designed to test whether visitors could understand advanced forms of communication. Seungwoo worked quickly, adjusting the ship's translators to interpret the signal. After a tense minute, the screen flickered, and an image appeared. It was a Vaylith. Their appearance was striking, tall and slender with skin that shimmered, like liquid metal under the light of their artificial sun. Their eyes glowed faintly, giving them an almost otherworldly aura. The being regarded them silently for a moment, then spoke in a voice that resonated deeply, as though it came from everywhere and nowhere at once. You are human, the Vaylith stated, its tone neither welcoming nor hostile. Why have you come? Jamin stepped forward, standing tall despite the unease gnawing at his stomach. He chose his words carefully, knowing this first impression might determine their fate. We are representatives of Earth, a planet in a distant part of the galaxy. We seek knowledge, understanding, and friendship. We wish to learn from your civilization and share our own. The Valith tilted its head slightly, studying him with an unreadable expression. Earth? Yes. We have records of your species, primitive, short-lived, and irrelevant. What do you hope to gain by coming here? The dismissive tone stung, but Jamin refused to let it show. Irrelevant? He replied, keeping his voice calm but firm. Perhaps we are young, but we are capable of growth. We've traveled across unimaginable distances to reach you. Does that not prove our potential? The Valith's response was cold. Potential means little without proof. Your kind has achieved nothing of note. You are children playing at the edges of a universe you cannot comprehend. Yuna stepped forward, her presence softening the tension. With respect, we may be younger than your people, but we have qualities worth valuing: creativity, resilience, and a desire to learn. We believe these traits can contribute to the galaxy if given the chance. For a moment, the Valith seemed to consider her words. Then it gestured toward the screen, and another image appeared. A map of the galaxy dotted with markers indicating inhabited systems. Earth was barely visible, a tiny speck near the outer rim. Your planet is insignificant, the Valith said bluntly. It holds no resources of value, no strategic importance. Why should we waste our time on you? Jamin clenched his fists, struggling to keep his temper in check. Because ignoring us won't make us disappear. Humanity will continue to grow, whether you acknowledge us or not. Wouldn't it be better to guide us rather than risk conflict later? The Valith's glowing eyes narrowed. Conflict? Do you threaten us, human? No, Jamin insisted. I'm simply stating a fact. Ignoring potential allies is a mistake. History has shown that time and again. The Valith fell silent, its gaze piercing. Finally, it nodded. Very well. We will allow you to dock. But know this. Your actions here will determine whether your species is tolerated or erased. With that, the transmission ended, leaving the crew in stunned silence. They had been granted permission to enter the consortium's territory, but the threat lingered heavily in the air. This was not going to be easy. Once docked, the crew disembarked cautiously, stepping onto one of the orbital stations. The environment was sterile and clinical, with smooth metallic walls and corridors bathed in cool blue light. Valith officials moved about efficiently, paying little attention to the newcomers. To them, humans were curiosities at best, an oddity to be observed and forgotten. Jamin led the group, his posture rigid as he tried to project confidence. Yuna walked beside him, her demeanor calm but alert. Ji-eun and Tai-hyun followed closely, carrying equipment in case they needed to gather data discreetly. Min-soo and Seung-woo stayed behind on Eos, ready to act if things went wrong. Their guide was a Valith historian named Kalaris, who had been assigned to assess their claims of cultural significance. Unlike the others, Kalaris seemed genuinely curious about humanity. As they walked through the station, he asked questions about Earth's history, art, and technology. Yuna answered thoughtfully, explaining concepts like music, storytelling, and innovation in ways that even someone unfamiliar with human culture could understand. At one point, Kalaris paused, his glowing eyes fixed on Yuna. You speak of creativity and resilience as strengths. Yet based on our records, your species is prone to violence and destruction. How can I trust that you will not bring chaos to the galaxy? Yuna hesitated, choosing her words carefully. Every civilization makes mistakes. Ours has certainly faced challenges, wars, environmental crises, inequality. But we also have the capacity to learn, to adapt, and to improve. That is what sets us apart. We don't give up no matter how difficult the path. Kalaris studied her for a long moment before nodding slowly. Perhaps there is truth in your words. But beware, the consortium does not tolerate failure. If you wish to earn their respect, you must prove yourselves beyond doubt. Later, During a private meeting arranged by Kalaris, the historian revealed unsettling truths about the consortium's past. "The Etherians," he began, lowering his voice, "they were not merely defeated, they were eradicated. Their refusal to submit to our authority made them a threat. We could not allow such defiance to spread." Jamin's jaw tightened. "And now you view us the same way? As a potential threat?" Kalaris sighed, his expression troubled. "Not all of us agree with the consortium's methods. Some see value in diversity, in allowing different civilizations to thrive. But the ruling council fears change. They see your rapid advancement as dangerous, unpredictable. If they believe Earth poses a risk, they will act swiftly to neutralize it." Yuna leaned forward, her voice urgent. "Is there any way to prevent that? To show them we're not a danger?" Kalaris shook his head. "It will not be easy. The consortium values strength above all else. To gain their trust, you must demonstrate power, not just technological, but moral. Show them that humanity is worthy of respect, not fear, the boss." Conversation left the crew uneasy. They had hoped to forge alliances to secure Earth's place among the stars. Instead, they found themselves walking a tightrope, balancing between diplomacy and survival. Over the next few days, the crew explored the station, gathering information and observing the consortium's operations. They saw wonders beyond imagination. Cities floating in space, energy harnessed from stars and technologies that defied explanation. But they also witnessed the darker side of the empire: oppressed colonies, exploited resources, and a rigid hierarchy that left little room for dissent. Jamin grew increasingly frustrated, his anger simmering beneath the surface. "This isn't right," he muttered one evening, pacing the ship's common area. "How can we sit idly by while they treat others this way?" "We can't fight them directly," Yuna reminded him gently. "Not yet. We're outnumbered. And outmatched. For now, we need to focus on finding allies, people like Kalaris who question the consortium's methods." Jamin stopped pacing, his expression grim. "And if we can't find enough allies, then we'll have to rely on ourselves," Yuna said firmly. "But we won't give up. Not until we've done everything we can to protect Earth." Her words bolstered his resolve, and together they devised a plan. Using the data they had gathered about the consortium's weaknesses, they would return home and prepare humanity for the inevitable confrontation. It wouldn't be easy. The road ahead was fraught with danger. But they knew one thing for certain: humanity's future depended on their courage, their ingenuity, and their refusal to bow to tyranny. As Eos prepared to leave the station, the crew looked back at the glittering expanse of the consortium's domain. They had learned much during their brief stay, but the hardest battles still lay ahead, and they were ready to face them. The journey back from the Valith Consortium's capital was heavy with tension. The crew of Eos had learned far more than they had expected, and none of it was comforting. They now understood the true nature of the galaxy they sought to join, a place ruled by fear, control, and the unyielding grip of an empire that saw humanity as nothing more than a potential threat. But alongside this grim knowledge came determination. If Earth was to survive, it would need to stand strong against the consortium's arrogance. Jamin spent most of his time in the lab, poring over the data they had secretly gathered during their stay. His sharp eyes scanned through schematics of consortium technology, maps of their territories, and records of suppressed rebellions across the galaxy. Every piece of information was a potential weapon, something they could use to prepare Earth for the battle ahead. Yet despite his focus, frustration gnawed at him. The consortium's power seemed insurmountable, their dominance absolute. How could humanity possibly hope to challenge such an empire? Yuna noticed his growing unease and approached him one evening as he worked. "You're pushing yourself too hard," she said softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We'll figure this out together," he sighed, leaning back in his chair. "It's not enough, Yuna. We've seen what they're capable of. If we go back empty-handed, Earth won't stand a chance." She nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Then let's think differently. What if we don't fight them directly? What if we expose them instead?" Her words sparked a flicker of hope in Jamin's mind. "Expose them?" he repeated, sitting up straighter. "Yes," Yuna continued. "The consortium thrives on secrecy. on keeping weaker civilizations ignorant of their oppression. If we can reveal the truth about their actions, maybe we can turn others against them, build alliances, create a united front. Jamin considered this, his brow furrowing. It was risky, but it might work. If we can access their archives, we could find evidence of their crimes, records of worlds they've destroyed, species they've enslaved. Exactly, Una said, her voice firm. And Kalaris hinted that some within the consortium already oppose their methods. If we give those dissenters proof, they might be willing to help us. The plan began to take shape. Over the next few days, the crew worked tirelessly to refine it. Ji-un modified the ship's systems to bypass security protocols, while Seong-woo fine-tuned the communication array to intercept encrypted transmissions. Min-soo plotted a course back toward the consortium's territory, ensuring they stayed far enough away to avoid detection until the moment was right. Tae-hyun prepared medical supplies, knowing injuries were almost inevitable once their mission began. Finally, they reached their destination, a remote outpost on the edge of the consortium's domain. Unlike the bustling capital, this station was smaller and less guarded, making it an ideal target for their operation. Under the cover of darkness, the team boarded a shuttle and descended toward the surface. As they landed, Jamin turned to the group. "Remember, speed is key. Get in, retrieve the data, and get out before anyone realizes we're here." The crew nodded, their faces set with resolve. They moved quickly and quietly, slipping into the outpost through a maintenance hatch Ji-un had identified during their reconnaissance. Inside, the corridors were dimly lit, the hum of machinery echoing off the walls. The air smelled faintly of oil and electricity, and the silence was broken only by the occasional footsteps of patrolling guards. Una led the way, her movements graceful and precise as she guided them toward the central archive. Along the way, they encountered several obstacles, locked doors, surveillance cameras, and automated defenses, but Ji-un's skills proved invaluable. With each challenge, she worked swiftly, disabling traps and rerouting power to keep them moving forward. When they finally reached the archive, Jamin felt a surge of triumph. Rows upon rows of glowing consoles stretched before them, each containing terabytes of classified information. "This is it," he whispered, his voice filled with awe. "Everything we need is here." Working together, the team downloaded files onto portable drives, prioritizing documents related to the consortium's military strategies, resource exploitation, and historical atrocities. As they worked, Una kept watch, her eyes scanning the room for any sign of danger. She knew time was running out. Suddenly, an alarm blared, shattering the quiet. Red lights flashed overhead, and the sound of rushing footsteps echoed down the corridor. "They found us!" Una shouted. "Keep going!" Jamin ordered, his hands flying over the controls as he transferred the last batch of data. "We're almost done." Ji-un moved to secure their exit, planting small explosives along the walls to create diversions. Meanwhile, Tae-hyun helped Seong-woo disconnect the communication lines, buying them precious seconds before reinforcements could arrive. The outpost erupted into chaos as alarms screamed and explosions rocked the building. Finally, Jamin grabbed the drives and signaled for everyone to retreat. They sprinted through the smoke-filled corridors, dodging falling debris and bursts of gunfire. Guards appeared around every corner, but Ji-un's explosives slowed them down just enough for the team to reach the shuttle bay. "Go! Go! Go!" Min-soo yelled as they piled into the shuttle. He fired up the engines and lifted off, weaving through a hail of laser fire as they escaped the outpost. Behind them, the structure collapsed in a fiery explosion, taking countless secrets with it. Back aboard Eos, the crew regrouped, adrenaline still coursing through their veins. Despite the danger they had faced, there was a sense of accomplishment in the air. They had succeeded where failure would have meant certain doom. Over the next several days, they sifted through the stolen data, piecing together a damning portrait of the consortium's reign. There were logs detailing the enslavement of entire populations, reports of planets stripped bare of resources, and even footage of massacres carried out in the name of order. Most shocking of all, they uncovered evidence that the consortium had deliberately erased records of Earth's visits by the Etherians, fearing what humanity might become if allowed to grow unchecked. "This changes everything," Jamin said, his voice low as he reviewed the findings. With this, we can rally others to our cause, show them the truth about the consortium. And remind Earth of its own strength, Yuna added. The Etherians believed in us. Now it's time we believe in ourselves. But as they prepared to return home, a new concern arose. The consortium would not take kindly to their theft. By exposing their crimes, humanity would become a direct threat, one the Empire would stop at nothing to eliminate. The question was no longer whether Earth could rise against the consortium, but whether it could survive long enough to do so. As Eos sailed silently through the stars, the crew braced themselves for the challenges ahead. They had ignited a spark of rebellion, but turning it into a flame would require courage, sacrifice, and unity. Back on Earth, centuries had passed since their departure, and they could only hope that humanity had grown strong enough to face the storm coming its way, for, better or worse, the fate of the galaxy rested in their hands, and they were ready to fight for it. The return to Earth was a moment filled with both hope and dread. Centuries had passed since the crew of Eos had left, and though they felt as if no time had truly gone by for them, thanks to the effects of space travel, they knew the planet they were returning to would be vastly different from the one they had left behind. As the ship descended through the atmosphere, the view outside the windows took their breath away. Gone were the sprawling cities of concrete and steel that once dotted the landscape. In their place stood gleaming towers made of shimmering materials, floating above oceans and deserts like something out of a dream. The skies were crisscrossed with streams of light, vehicles moving silently without engines or pollution. Even the air smelled cleaner, fresher, as if nature itself had been given a second chance. Humanity had not only survived, but thrived in ways that none of them could have imagined. But it wasn't just technology that had advanced. Society had changed too. Nations no longer fought over borders or resources. Instead, Earth was united, under a single global government led by Sujin, Jamin's younger sister. Her face appeared on screens across the planet, calm and resolute, as she addressed humanity daily about progress, unity, and preparation for what lay beyond the stars. When Eos touched down at the central hub, a massive structure surrounded by lush greenery and waterfalls, the crew stepped out into a world that felt both familiar and alien. Crowds gathered to welcome them, cheering and waving banners bearing messages of gratitude and admiration. For the people of Earth, these explorers were legends who had ventured into the unknown and returned to share their stories. Sujin approached, first her eyes shining with tears as she embraced Jamin tightly. "You're finally home," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Behind her stood Hyoseok, Yuna's husband, holding their now-grown daughter, Yunji. The girl looked up at her mother with wide, curious eyes, unsure how to feel about this stranger who had left so long ago. For a brief moment, there was joy, a reunion centuries in the making. But soon, reality set in. Jamin pulled Sujin aside, his expression grim. "We don't have much time," he said quietly. "The consortium knows we stole their secrets. They'll come for us, and when they do, we need to be ready." Sujin nodded, her demeanor shifting instantly. She had prepared for this day, ever since strange signals began reaching Earth decades earlier. Those signals, combined with mysterious artifacts left behind by the Etherians, had propelled humanity forward, faster than anyone thought possible. Now she understood why. Earth wasn't just advancing, it was being groomed for war. Over the next few days, the crew shared everything they had learned. They presented the stolen data, showing Earth the true face of the Valith Consortium, an empire built on oppression, fear, and destruction. Images of enslaved populations, barren planets, and massacred civilizations shocked even those who had grown accustomed to thinking of themselves as pioneers. The revelation that the consortium had deliberately erased records of Earth's connection to the Etherians sparked outrage. "We can't let them win," Sujin declared during a meeting with Earth's leaders. "If we stand together, we can protect what we've built. We owe it to ourselves and to the Etherians who believed in us." Plans were made swiftly. Earth's defenses were already formidable, thanks to the remnants of Etherian technology integrated into human systems. Floating cities doubled as fortresses, equipped with energy shields and weapons capable of repelling invaders. Underground, bunkers housed millions, ensuring survival even if the surface was attacked. And perhaps most importantly, Earth's military forces were trained and ready, led by strategists like HFY Story, who had spent years preparing for this exact scenario. Despite these preparations, tension hung heavy in the air. Everyone knew the consortium's power far exceeded anything Earth had faced before. Their ships were larger, their weapons more advanced, and their numbers overwhelming. Victory was far from guaranteed. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Jamin found himself standing alone on a hill overlooking the city. It was beautiful, a testament to humanity's resilience and ingenuity, but it also reminded him of how much was at stake. If they failed, all of this would be lost. Yuna joined him, her presence calming yet tinged with sadness. "Do you think we did the right thing?" she asked softly. "Coming back here? Bringing this fight to Earth?" Jamin hesitated, his gaze fixed on the distant skyline. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I do know this. Running wouldn't have solved anything. The consortium sees us as a threat, whether we act or not. At least this way, we have a chance to defend ourselves, to show them that humanity isn't afraid to stand up for what's right." Yuna nodded, though her expression remained troubled. "And what happens if we lose? What happens to everyone? Down there?" He turned to look at her, his voice steady despite the weight of his words. "Then we make sure they remember us. That they remember we fought for freedom, for justice, for a better future. Even if we fall, our legacy will live on." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of alarms blaring in the distance. Both froze, their hearts pounding as they realized what it meant. The consortium had arrived. From orbit, dozens of massive ships descended, their sleek forms casting shadows over the land below. Lasers streaked across the sky, targeting Earth's defenses. Cities activated their shields, glowing brightly as they absorbed the initial barrage. Explosions rocked the ground as missiles launched in retaliation, striking several enemy vessels and sending them crashing into the ocean. The battle had begun. Back at the command center, Sujin coordinated the defense effort, her voice clear and commanding despite the chaos around her. "Focus fire on their lead ship," she ordered, pointing to a display showing the positions of the invading fleet. "If we can disable it, the others will lose cohesion." HFY Story worked alongside her, directing troops and managing resources. His experience as a strategist proved invaluable, allowing Earth's forces to hold their ground against the relentless assault. Meanwhile, Jamin and Yuna joined the fight directly, piloting smaller craft designed to weave through enemy lines and deliver critical strikes. The battle raged for hours, neither side willing to yield. Earth's defenders fought with everything they had, using every trick and tactic they had learned from studying the consortium's own methods. Energy beams lanced through the air, explosions lit up the night, and debris rained down from shattered ships. Casualties mounted on both sides, but Earth refused to break. At one point, Jamin's ship was hit, forcing him to eject just moments before it exploded. He floated helplessly in space, watching as the conflict unfolded around him. For a brief moment, despair threatened to overwhelm him. Then he saw Yuna's ship dart past, narrowly avoiding a volley of fire. Her determination reignited his resolve. "I'm not done yet," he muttered, activating his emergency thrusters and heading back toward the nearest station. As dawn broke, the tide began to turn. Earth's forces managed to destroy the lead ship, crippling the consortium's command structure. Without centralized leadership, their attacks grew disorganized, giving humanity the upper hand. By midday, the remaining invaders retreated, leaving behind a trail of wreckage and smoke. The victory was bittersweet. Cities lay in ruins, millions had perished, and the scars of war would take generations to heal. But Earth had survived. Against all odds, humanity had proven itself stronger than anyone, including the consortium, had anticipated. As the dust settled, Sujin addressed the survivors, her voice filled with pride and sorrow. "Today, we showed the galaxy that we are not weak, that we will not bow to tyranny. This is only the beginning. Together we will rebuild, grow stronger, and ensure that no one ever doubts our strength again." Jamin stood beside her, his heart heavy but hopeful. They had won the first round, but the war was far from over. Somewhere out there, the consortium plotted its next move. When it came, humanity would be ready. For now, though, they allowed themselves a moment to breathe, to mourn, to celebrate, and to honor those who had given everything to protect their world. The stars twinkled above, silent witnesses to humanity's courage and resilience. And somewhere among them, the legacy of the Etherians shone brightly, guiding Earth toward a brighter future.